The recruitment hall buzzed with the kind of arrogance only privilege could buy. Rows of polished weapon displays lined the crystalline walls, each piece of technology more advanced than anything Earth had produced in the last 3 centuries. Mira Chen stood in line, clutching a worn leather case that looked about as impressive as dirt next to diamonds. "What is that supposed to be?" The voice belonged to Krell, a Vaxian with 4 arms and an ego bigger than his homeworld. His scales shimmered under the ambient lights as he pointed one clawed finger at her case. "Did you bring your lunch?" Laughter rippled through the crowd of recruits. 70 species from across the Galactic Coalition had gathered here at the Nexus Academy for advanced warfare, the most prestigious military institution in known space. Getting accepted meant you were the best of the best from your planet. Getting mocked on day 1 meant you were human. Mira kept her eyes forward, jaw tight. She had expected this. Earth was the newest member of the Coalition, barely a decade into first contact. Humans were the cosmic equivalent of country cousins who had just wandered into a family reunion of billionaires. "Seriously, though," Krell continued, warming to his audience, "is that a musical instrument? Are you going to play us a sad song when you wash out?" A few more species joined in. A Thorian with skin like polished obsidian made a comment about primitive technology. A Zenthari, all 6 of her eyes gleaming with amusement, wondered aloud if humans still used projectiles. The thought seemed to entertain her immensely. "Actually," Mira said quietly, not turning around. "Yes, we do." The laughter doubled. Someone behind her, a recruit whose name she hadn't learned yet, made a choking sound that might have been either humor or horror. "Projectiles," Krell repeated slowly, as if explaining to a child. "You mean like throwing metal at people, with chemical reactions?" "Something like that." Mira's fingers tightened on the case handle. "Oh, this is golden. This is absolutely golden." Krell nudged the recruit next to him, a Feln whose translator chip glowed blue at his throat. "She brought a museum piece to Military Academy. What's next? Are you going to show us how to make fire?" Mira turned then, meeting his eyes with a level stare that made something in his expression flicker. "Just for a moment." "Fire's useful too. You'd be surprised what you can do with basics." Before Krell could respond, the massive doors at the end of the hall hissed open. The chatter died instantly. Instructor Vorn entered, and the temperature seemed to drop with each of his footsteps. He was Krell's species, Vaxian, but where Krell was all flash and arrogance, Vorn moved like violence wrapped in discipline. Scars crisscrossed his scales, each one a story of survival. His 4 arms hung loose at his sides, but every recruit in that room knew he could draw and fire 4 weapons before most of them could blink. "Line up!" Vorn's voice could cut steel. "Bring your chosen weapons. Let's see what you've brought to my academy." The recruits scrambled into formation. Mira found herself near the middle, still clutching her case while others hefted plasma rifles, quantum disruptors, and graviton cannons. The weapons hummed with power, each one capable of leveling buildings or punching through starship hulls. Vorn walked the line slowly, examining each recruit and their weapon. He paused at a Drellian holding a phase rifle that seemed to shift in and out of visible spectrum. "Adequate," Vorn grunted. He moved on to a Corthan with a neural disruptor. "Acceptable." Krell practically vibrated with anticipation when Vorn reached him. He held a custom Vaxian Reaper cannon, sleek and deadly with enough firepower to take out a small battalion. "Sir, I chose the Mark 7 Reaper. It fires concentrated plasma bursts at 3,000 rounds per minute with a—" "I can see what it is," Vorn interrupted. "Acceptable." He moved on before Krell's face could finish falling. Then Vorn reached Mira. His eyes, cold and yellow, dropped to her case. The silence stretched. Someone coughed. Krell, recovered from his disappointment, wore a grin sharp enough to cut glass. "Open it," Vorn commanded. Mira set the case on the ground, keyed the locks, and lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in foam padding that had seen better days, lay her weapon. It was long, dark metal and treated wood, with a scope mounted on top and a mechanism that looked positively ancient compared to everything else in the room. The silence that followed was the kind that preceded either applause or execution. "Is that," the Zenthari recruit breathed, all 6 eyes wide, "is that a kinetic weapon?" "It's called a rifle," Mira said evenly. "This particular model is based on a Remington 700 design, modified for long-range applications, bolt action, chambered for 300 Win-Mag rounds." Krell looked like someone had just told him the universe was flat. "You brought a slug thrower to Military Academy, to the most advanced combat training facility in the galaxy." Each sentence came out harder than the last. "You're joking. This is performance art." Several recruits laughed, though more nervously now. They were watching Vorn, whose expression had gone very, very still. "Effective range?" Vorn asked quietly. "Depends on the shooter," Mira replied. "In trained hands, confirmed kills have been made at over 3,000 meters. That's a bit over 3 kilometers. 3 kilometers, Krell's voice dripped with mockery. "My sidearm can hit targets at 5 kilometers. My sidearm. That thing you're holding is what, 200 years old?" "Closer to 400 for the base design," Mira corrected, "though this particular rifle was built 15 years ago." The laughter was building again, feeding on itself. Even some of the more reserved species were smiling now. A human, bringing a weapon that belonged in a museum. The absurdity was just too perfect. "Let me get this straight," Krell pushed forward, playing to his audience. "While the rest of us brought weapons that can fire through walls, around corners, through shields, you brought something that needs direct line of sight, has, what, maybe a 10-round magazine." 5 rounds, Mira said. That did it. The laughter exploded. Krell was practically howling. 5 rounds. 5. My weapon has an energy cell that's good for 8,000 shots before it needs recharging, and you have 5. 5 is usually enough, Mira said, her voice still level, but something cold had crept into her tone now. Vorn held up one hand. The laughter cut off like someone had flipped a switch. "Recruits," he said softly, which was somehow worse than if he had shouted. "You're making assumptions. Dangerous ones?" Krell's smile faltered. "Sir, I mean no disrespect, but it's a primitive weapon. Surely you're not suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything," Vorn interrupted. His eyes never left the rifle. "I'm telling you that you're all idiots who know nothing about warfare." The words landed like artillery shells. Krell's mouth opened and closed. The other recruits shifted uncomfortably. Vorn reached down and carefully, almost reverently, lifted the rifle from its case. He examined it with the attention of someone who understood exactly what he was holding. "Do you know why energy weapons dominate modern warfare?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Because they're easy. Point, pull trigger, energy goes out, target dies. Simple, efficient." He turned the rifle over, checking the scope, the bolt mechanism, the trigger assembly. "But energy weapons have signatures, heat blooms, particle traces, electromagnetic pulses. Any half-decent sensor can see them coming from kilometers away. Shields can disperse them. Countermeasures can deflect them." Vorn looked up, his gaze sweeping across every recruit. "This weapon? This is what we in the trade call a ghost. No energy signature. No heat bloom until after the round is fired, and by then it's too late. The projectile is just metal, moving fast. Very, very fast." He handed the rifle back to Mira, with what might have been respect in his eyes. Humans, in their infinite stubbornness, perfected the art of killing each other from distances that most species consider impossible. They did it without computers. without AI assistance, without any of the advantages we take for granted. Vorn's voice dropped lower. Every recruit leaned in unconsciously. Do you want to know the longest confirmed kill shot in human military history? He paused, letting the question hang. 3,540 meters. That's 3.5 kilometers. The target never knew what hit him, never heard the shot, never saw the shooter. One moment he was alive, the next he simply wasn't. Krell had gone very quiet. The scales around his neck had lost their shimmer. The human who made that shot, Vorn continued, did it on a planet with wind, with weather, with gravity, all variables that had to be calculated, on the fly, with nothing but math and experience. The round traveled for over 8 seconds before impact, 8 seconds of flight time, during which the planet rotated, the wind shifted, and the target moved. He gestured at the plasma rifles, the energy weapons, the high-tech marvels around them. Your weapons make you lazy. They compensate for your mistakes. Their computers do the thinking. He pointed at Mira's rifle. That weapon makes you think. Every shot requires calculation, wind speed, distance, temperature, humidity, the rotation of whatever planet you're on. Bullet drop, target movement, and you get 5 chances to get it right. Vorn walked back to the front of the room, his boots echoing in the sudden quiet. You know what the really terrifying part is? He turned, and something that might have been a smile crossed his scarred face. That 3.5 kilometer shot? That's with primitive optics, basic rangefinders. Now imagine what a human can do with our technology, our sensors, our computers for ballistic calculation. Mira felt dozens of eyes on her now. The laughter had died completely. I'll tell you what they can do, Vorn said softly. They can kill you from continents away, from different time zones. You won't hear it, won't see it, won't know you're targeted until you're dead. He paused. And they only need one shot to make that happen. Krell looked like he'd swallowed something toxic. The Zenthari recruit's eyes had gone very, very wide. Even the Thorian, who had seemed so confident earlier, had taken a step back. Primitive, Vorn said, rolling the word around. You called it primitive. Let me explain something about primitives. They survive because they're good at one thing. His yellow eyes glinted. Killing. The firing range stretched out like a wound in the landscape, carved into bedrock and reinforced with energy barriers that could withstand orbital bombardment. Target drones hovered at various distance, from 100 meters to well beyond visual range. The 70 recruits stood in a loose cluster, most still processing what Vorn had said in the hall. Mira checked her rifle, running through the familiar motions. Check the bolt, clear the chamber, inspect the scope mounts. The ritual calmed her, brought focus through the noise of doubt that had been building since she arrived. Attention, Vorn's voice cut through the murmur of conversation. Standard qualification course. You'll engage targets at multiple ranges. Score is calculated on accuracy and time. 50 targets, increasing difficulty. He paused, scanning the crowd. Chen, you're up first. The words hit like cold water. Mira felt every eye turn toward her. Krell's face was a mixture of vindication and anticipation. He wanted to see her fail. They all did, in their own ways. Some out of malice, others simple curiosity. The new species with their old weapon, about to demonstrate why Earth would always be second-rate. Sir, Mira said, stepping forward. Her voice didn't shake. Good. Are the targets shielded? Would it matter? Vorn asked, something sharp in his tone. No, sir. Just adjusting my expectations. A few recruits exchanged glances. The Thorian whispered something to the Feln that made them both smile. Mira walked to the firing line, a platform that extended out over the range. Below and ahead, the canyon opened up, dotted with target positions. Her hands moved on autopilot, loading 5 rounds into the rifle's internal magazine. The brass cartridges slid home with soft clicks that sounded impossibly loud in her ears. "Targets will appear randomly," Vorn announced. "You have 3 minutes. 3 minutes. 50 targets." That meant less than 4 seconds per target, including acquisition time with a bolt action rifle. Mira felt sweat starting to bead at her temples despite the cool air. "Begin," Vorn said. The first target drone snapped into visibility at 200 meters. Mira's rifle was already moving, muscle memory guiding the motion. Cheek to stock, eye to scope. Breathe. The crosshairs settled on center mass. Squeeze. The rifle's report cracked across the range, sharp and violent in a way that energy weapons never managed. The target drone sparked and tumbled from the sky. Chamber the next round. The bolt worked smoothly, ejecting the spent casing in a bright arc. Another target, 300 meters, moving lateral. Let it. Account for movement. Breathe. Squeeze. Crack. The second drone died. "Acceptable pace," Vorn commented. "But the targets get harder." They did. Target 3 appeared at 500 meters, weaving. Target 4 was partially obscured behind a rock formation. Target 5 was small, maybe a third the size of the others. Mira worked through them methodically. Bolt, aim, breathe, fire. The rhythm became meditative, shutting out the watching crowd, the pressure, everything except the next target and the calculations required to hit it. When her 5th round spent, she dropped the magazine, reloaded, and continued without breaking pace. Targets appeared faster now at longer ranges, with more complex movement patterns. Her shoulder was going to be bruised tomorrow from the recoil. Her fingers worked the bolt so fast they blurred. 1 minute remaining, Vorn called out. 20 targets down, 30 to go. Mira's breathing was controlled, but her heart hammered. A target popped up at 800 meters, right at the edge of where she'd feel confident without computer assistance. She adjusted for wind, for the slight updraft in the canyon, for distance. Fired. The target disappeared. Another. The rifle grew hot in her hands. Brass casings piled at her feet, glinting in the sunlight. 15 targets left. 40 seconds. Then Vorn did something unexpected. 3 targets appeared simultaneously at different ranges and vectors. Test within the test. Most energy weapons could have swept all 3 in seconds. Mira had 1 barrel, 1 shot at a time. Nearest first, 600 meters stationary, easy, crack, bolt. Second target, 400 meters rising, lead it up, crack, bolt. Third target, 900 meters moving away. This one was spite from Vorn, a shot that shouldn't be possible in the time remaining. Mira didn't think. Thinking got you killed. She let training take over, let all those hours on ranges back on Earth guide her hands. The crosshairs settled. She squeezed. The rifle bucked. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, impossibly far away, the third drone sparked and fell. "Time," Vorn announced. Mira lowered the rifle, hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. She'd gotten 47 out of 50. Not perfect, but given the constraints, given the weapon, given everything working against her, it was solid. The silence from the recruits was deafening. Vorn walked to the firing line, his datapad showing the results. 47 targets, average time per target 3.6 seconds. He looked at her, including reload time, with a manual action weapon. Something that might have been approval flickered across his face. Adequate. Coming from Vorn, adequate meant excellent. Mira knew it. The other recruits were starting to understand it. "Who's next?" Vorn called out. "Krell, let's see what that expensive toy can do." Krell stepped forward with considerably less swagger than he'd shown earlier. His Reaper cannon hummed as it powered up, energy cells glowing blue along its length. He positioned himself at the firing line, the weapon's targeting computer linking with his neural interface. "Begin," Vorn said. What followed was impressive in its own way. Krell's weapon spat plasma in controlled bursts, each shot guided by computer assistants that corrected for distance, wind, movement. Targets fell in rapid succession. His time per target was under 2 seconds. He finished with 49 out of 50, missing one of the longest range shots. 49 targets, Vorn read off. Well done. Next. One by one, the recruits took their turns. The Zenthari scored 48. The Thorian got a perfect 50, though his weapon's smart targeting system essentially did all the work. A Korthan recruit managed 46. The scores clustered in the high 40s, all of them aided by technology that made shooting less about skill and more about letting the weapon think for you. When the last recruit finished, Vorn gathered them all together. You've seen the scores. Most of you did well. Some of you did better. He paused. Now let me show you something interesting. He pulled up a holographic display showing the range, but with additional data overlaid. Energy signatures bloomed like flowers across the visualization, each one marking where a shot had been fired. Plasma rifles left bright traces. Particle weapons created cascading patterns. Even the supposedly clean energy weapons showed up like beacons. This is what sensors see, Vorn explained. Every shot most of you took lit you up like a signal flare. Any half-competent enemy would have your position triangulated in seconds. He shifted the display. Now, look at Chen's signature. The hologram showed Mira's firing position. There were tiny thermal spikes when each round fired, but they were minimal, brief, and scattered by the wind. Compared to the light show from the energy weapons, her rifle had been practically invisible. In real combat, Vorn continued, being invisible matters more than being fast. A sniper who takes 5 careful shots from a concealed position will survive longer than a gunner who takes 50 shots from an exposed one. He gestured at the display. Modern warfare has made us forget this. We've gotten used to shields, to countermeasures, to fighting enemies who announce their presence with every trigger pull. Krell was staring at the display with a look of dawning understanding. But if both sides have energy weapons, the signatures don't matter because everyone's lit up anyway. Correct, Vorn said. It's a level playing field. But introduce one side that doesn't play by those rules, one side that can kill you without ever appearing on sensors, and suddenly the game changes. He looked at Mira. Humans didn't develop energy weapons for a simple reason. They never needed to. They'd already gotten very, very good at killing each other the old-fashioned way. A Drellian recruit raised a tentacle hesitantly. But sir, the range issue. Energy weapons can engage at kilometers. That rifle maxes out at what? 4 kilometers in atmosphere. Under ideal conditions, Vorn agreed, but you're thinking conventionally. Let me tell you about a training exercise the Coalition ran 5 years ago. He pulled up another display, showing terrain maps and tactical data. We wanted to test human recruits against our best. Standard war game scenario. Humans were outnumbered 3-1, outgunned in every measurable way. The recruits leaned in, curiosity overriding their earlier prejudices. The humans lost every direct engagement, Vorn continued. Their weapons couldn't match ours for rate of fire or range in open combat. But they didn't fight fair. They used terrain. They used patience. They took shots from positions we never thought to check, because our sensors said nobody was there. His scarred face split into something predatory. By the end of day 1, our forces were terrified to move. Every time a unit advanced, someone would drop. No warning, no flash of energy, just a crack in the distance and someone falling. Our sensors showed nothing. Our shields stopped nothing. The psychological impact was devastating. How did it end? The Zenthari asked, her voice quiet. The humans won, Vorn said flatly. not through superior technology or firepower, through fear, through making us understand that anywhere, anytime, from any direction they could reach out and kill us, and we'd never see it coming. Silence fell over the range. Mira felt the weight of dozens of stares, but they were different now. Less mockery, more assessment, maybe even respect. Krell cleared his throat. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "Granted. He looked at Mira, something complicated crossing his features. "I may have been hasty in my earlier assessment." The words came out stiff, forced, but genuine. "That was impressive shooting." Mira nodded acknowledgement. "Your score was higher." "With a weapon that thinks for me," Krell countered. "You had to do all the math in your head. He struggled for a moment. "That's actually kind of terrifying when you think about it." "Welcome to warfare," Vorn said. "The terrifying kind." He gestured at the range. "All of you will learn to shoot like Chen. Manual calculations, no computer assistance. You'll learn to think like a target, like prey, because that's what you are out there. And maybe, just maybe, you'll learn to appreciate what primitive means." He started walking back toward the academy buildings, then paused. "Oh, and Chen? Sir, next time someone mocks your weapon, tell them this." His yellow eyes gleamed. "It doesn't need a power cell. It doesn't need energy shields. It doesn't broadcast your position. And in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing, it only needs one shot." He smiled, all teeth. "Sleep well tonight, recruits. Tomorrow we find out if any of you can actually hit what you're aiming at without a computer holding your hand." As the group dispersed, Mira carefully cleaned her rifle, running a cloth down the barrel, checking for any fouling. The motions were automatic, soothing. She was aware of recruits watching her, some approaching with questions about the weapon, about Earth, about how humans learned to shoot. Krell lingered at the edge of the group. Eventually, he approached. "That thing about continents," he said quietly. "Vorn wasn't exaggerating, was he?" "No," Mira said simply. "With the right ammunition, the right conditions, and honestly, a bit of luck, you could make a shot from one continent to another. Humans have been working on extreme long-range shooting for centuries. It's kind of our thing." "That's insane." "Maybe." Mira smiled then, tired but genuine. "But we're the species that looked at throwing rocks and decided to keep improving the concept for 10,000 years. Insanity might be part of the package." Krell laughed, a sound like stones grinding together but warm. "I think I'm glad you're on our side." "Me too," Mira said. She looked out at the range, at the distant targets, at the canyon that stretched toward the horizon. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, new opportunities to prove that sometimes the old ways worked just fine. Her rifle caught the fading sunlight, metal and wood, primitive and deadly, a reminder that technology wasn't everything. Sometimes all you needed was good aim, steady hands, and the patience to wait for the perfect shot. Somewhere in the distance, a target drone still smoldered. Mira shouldered her rifle and headed inside. She had studying to do, and tomorrow the real work would begin. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.